Evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on the circular business model for the net zero supply chain. Thank you for joining us. Am I audible? If someone can give me a thumbs up, please.
Yeah, sure.
Today, we will be talking about how companies are rethinking the product design, supply chain, standards, and digital tracking to cut their emission and build more efficient circular systems. It's a very practical conversation and relevant to anyone who is working in the area of sustainability, operations, supply chain, product development, or ESG. Before I introduce the moderator for today, a very quick reminder, this session is being recorded and our recording will be available on our webpage later. While we will have a dedicated Q&A session at the end, at any point if you have questions, please drop in the chat and we would be happy to take them. I'm very happy to introduce our moderator for today, Vikrant Vaidya. Vikrant comes with 2 decades of experience across EV system engineering, clean tech projects, and sustainability. He is partnered with P Manifold and has also co-founded the P Manifold EV Academy. He has worked closely with industry on real on-ground projects, helping the teams adopt clean technologies and efficient ways of working. With his experience across engineering, strategy, and systems thinking, Vikrant is a perfect person to guide this discussion and help us connect the dot between design, supply chain, policy, and digital tools. With that, I would like to invite Vikrant to take over as a moderator. Vikrant, over to you.
Thank you, Isha. Welcome all. And I know we have very esteemed panelists today. I will just quickly introduce them as well as go through a bit of context setting. But I will leave the stage more for the experts to speak, and which I would also like to hear. Our first panelist is Shana Muzumdar. She is a seasoned sustainability professional. She has extensive experience in circularity, the topic of today, lifecycle assessment, and sustainable design strategies. She has worked across corporate sustainability, value chain optimization, and environmental performance improvement. Right? This helps organization embed life cycle thinking and design intelligence into product and process innovations. So, really glad to have you, Shahna. Our second panelist is Amit Aneja. Amit is an independent business consultant. He specializes in sustainable supply chains, operational transformation, and circular business models. With a strong background in cross-functional consulting, he advises organizations on redesigning supply chain systems to improve resilience, material efficiency, as well as environmental performance. Welcome, Amit, to the panel. Glad to have you as well. Then we have Ajinkya Kale. Ajinkya is a program lead in circular economy team at CEEW, where he works on resource efficiency, critical minerals, circularity standards, and emerging policies. His research and policy advocacy support to the government agencies and industries. It aligns with circularity frameworks, global standards, and regulatory pathways. So good to have you as well, Ajinkya. And last but not the least, very contemporary theme as of now, which is digital traceability and data infrastructure. So we have Rajiv Bhattacharjee. Rajiv is a director at RE Put AI, a climate tech company building data-driven sustainability solutions. His expertise is in creating AI-enabled digital product passports, traceability systems, and data infrastructure. These enable transparency, accountability, and traceability, which eventually helps us build the circularity across supply chains. Welcome, Rajiv. Thanks for joining us as well. So I will set a little bit of context. We often hear circularity. We often wonder what are its what is its significance, why it is important, why there is a urgency. So let us understand a bit. I think we are more familiar with the linear economy, consumption based, where we take the resources, convert it into a product, use, and then we scrap it, right? And to certain extent, probably since 3 decades or so, or maybe a little more, we have been hearing about recycling economy. So recycling made it quite early into our lives, probably. Uh, and this is essentially reusing the material of any product. So we start with a product, we use it, but the materials are extracted out, and we remake the same product or similar products. Okay? And then once the recyclability has been exhausted of that material, it is scrapped. However, both of these models, particularly the recycling one, which we probably have grown upon, is not adequate today. There is an estimate that we are using up resources almost twice as much as the our planet is able to produce. In fact, 1.7 Earths is what we are using as humanity. So it is not sustainable. Even recycling will not suffice. So we have to look at circularity in totality. So, can it also be reused before recycling? Can it be repaired, refurbished, and used? And after recycling, also, can we continue this cycle? How much longer can we continue this cycle so that the end goal is we don't actually scrap anything, we don't dump anything in the trash can as is shown on the slide, right? So, this is extremely important because this is not an option, this is something that is imperative when we talk about net zero, right? That's kind of sums up what we want to get in terms of sustainability, in terms of resource, in terms of not just waste management, but also not generating that in the first place as far as possible. Okay. Uh, Next, please. So, what are the different pathways, or what are the different uh, enablers for the circularity or the circular business model? But and those are policy and regulatory push. Yes, we want the regulations to come in place. I was doing one of the stakeholder consultations around a year back, and uh, a transport fleet operator said, if you want us to use zero emission vehicles, why don't you mandate it? So, lot of times people look upon the government to mandate things, but there has to be a pathway, not just one decision or one abrupt change in something that we do. Otherwise, there is a lot of resistance. So a policy and regulatory push in a more uh, continuous manner, consistent manner, then corporate reporting mandates. So there are many things which are audited in corporate, including finances as well as other things. But sustainability reporting is also something which is starting to becoming mandatory. Understanding how all the scopes of emissions, for example, are are mitigated with by the corporates, and also in terms of what resources are being used, and how much recyclability we are establishing. Yeah. Then digital infrastructure for circularity, any traceability, any aspect of business, it is always good to have the traceability. But now it has become imperative as well, because without knowing where the material is going, without knowing where the product is going, without having the history for reference, it is difficult to establish that value chain. It is difficult to get confidence of people working downstream in the value chain, right? So it is extremely important to have this traceability, have this what we call as passport of the products. And then there are global commitments, there are global protocols which all countries are signing up to. Everyone has heard about COP. So COP 30 is the latest uh, 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 version of it. So there We have overall protocol around science-based frameworks. We have defined the five-stage cycles of creating these processes, and overall positioning of the circularity alongside what we are mitigating as greenhouse gas emission challenge, global warming challenge, essentially carbon accounting. This will become a standardized practice, already has standards around it, so will be implemented soon. So it is something which everyone is trying to understand, trying to see how it applies to their business, their work area. And that's why I think this discussion today is very important. Without taking much more time, I will get into the discussion itself, inviting our first panelist, Shahana. What I would like to understand to begin with is how can life cycle assessment be integrated into the product development process itself? Because oftentimes we do this accounting as an afterthought. So, how do we integrate life cycle assessment into the product development, and how it can guide the choice of materials to be used for the product, modularity of the designs, the its impact on GHG emissions, as well as cost, and then also its longevity. So, would like to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Vikrant, and glad to meet my fellow panelists and all the attendees. Hello, good evening. This is Shahana. So, Vikrant, thank you for first of all asking that question because I think traditionally, and the way we have been doing it, I mean, the way I have seen the industry evolve. LCA was primarily, done basically, and it was put as an afterthought, and mostly currently in the geography that we are currently into India, here definitely it was more from a compliance standpoint. If there's a compliance or if there's a push from the regulating entity or if there's a push from any other authority, then LCA was deemed mandatory for specifically for electronics industry, FMCGs, manufacturing industry. Having said that, now today we flip that script. I feel, and the way I see it now, the way we are evolving, doing an LCA late is equivalent to checking the map after reaching the wrong destination. I would say that it starts the circularity, the concept of circularity altogether starts at the design phase, wherein LCA at earliest stages of the product design, it helped teams make informed choices about materials, design features, processes that minimizes the environmental impact from the start. Um, in terms of your question is that how can this be integrated early into the product development. Um there are several ways to it, to cut it to I will limit myself to top three. One is one way to look at it is you we understand that close to 70% to 80% of the product's entire environmental impact is logged in at the design stage itself. Therefore, when we do a screening, the conceptualizing of the design at the design stage, there are a lot of screening LCAs that are done at the concept stage itself. We have a lot of industry specific examples. We have CAD integrated tools like one click LCA or Tally for real time feedback. We can integrate these into the results of these in the design reviews alongside cost as well as performance. So traditionally, and the way we look at it is the focus of that is mostly into cost as well as performance. The one thing that we lack when we talk about cost and performance is uh, looking at the environmental impacts, altogether also impacts somehow the cost and performance of the product, which we, at that point of time, we do not think. For example, one of the leading, design and engineering firms, global design and engineering firm. They embedded LCA, the conceptual design of one of the major motorways project in the UK, and that was using the one-click LCA, wherein they could identify the carbon hotspots and it optimized the overall CO2 reduction to 30%, CO2 reduction and a lot of cost savings as well. Similarly, one of the electronic companies, leading one. We talk about modularity. So they designed, modular smartphones, which was again guided by the LCA. They thought that, why not, instead of, me thinking of the embedded emissions, if I also look into enabling easy repairs and upgrades, it does extend the product life from 2 to 3 to say a 5 to 7 years, which will again reduce tremendous amount of e-waste and will amortize the production emissions as well. There are classic examples even from the FMCG companies, wherein the leading one right now globally, they shifted from a multi-layer laminate to a mono-material pouches, and this was done at the design and conception stage, and that's why they have been able to lead by example. So organizations or corporates who are thinking of leading by example are thinking of introducing this at the design stage itself. In currently in the Indian geography, if we take a look, we also see that the market regulator here in India, SEBI, they have introduced. So there's a mandate for top 1,000 companies, who are listed to go ahead and publish a report, the ESG performance report, which is called as the BRSR. LCA is one of the leading indicators in that particular report. It's meant for industry leaders who are leading on that aspect. And if you look at the way the questions have been designed, it's not telling you directly that go ahead and do an LCA at the design and conceptual stage, but there's a push that we see right now, push for top 1,000 companies to be able to conceptualize the new products at that stage and then go ahead and accordingly disclose. So it does add to your cost. There are several leading examples, especially after the onset or post the tremendous amount of work done in this sector by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, who is doing tremendously well when it comes to circular economy. We see these concepts coming up and organizations taking this up at the design stage itself.
Great, great. Thanks, Anna. Yes, oftentimes, if you can build the circularity in the design, you probably have begun very well, and lot of downstream issues become easier to handle, and not a lot of kind of afterthought or work around that happens. With that, Amit, I would like to come to you. Um, uh, we talked about the design and how it can be how LCA can be integrated into the design, trying to build in the circularity early in the life stage. But we also talk about lot of product companies. The supply chains are actually not directly going into the equipment manufacturers, right? The end product manufacturers, but there are tiers, oftentimes multiple tiers of supply chains. So are these supply chains, which probably start at material processing, extraction and processing, all the way going into the product, a subsystem or component going into the product, are these inherently unsustainable, or is it possible to make them sustainable? Is a in a sense, is a zero emission supply chain possible? Would like to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Vikrant, and then glad to be part of this webinar and then the panel discussion by VCAT. Uh, my thought process is that what we are talking about is important, right? On the circular economy, right? What we can we achieve the circular economy? I'll start with the 3 R's, which are important, right? Can we do something to recover, reuse, or return the same thing to the economy? That is probably the starting point for uh, anything which we are probably trying to make a supply chain sustainable or thinking around that particular direction. So the 3 aspects which are important is the resilience, agility, as well as on the sustainability. These three aspects come down naturally. And what Shana also mentioned, that it starts with the design process. If we don't integrate that particular into the design process, right, at the early stage of the, you can say, conceptualizing your supply chain, or you can say your strategy, then it will be very difficult at a later stage of the game, right? And how this can be done is certainly through technology, through BIM, through digital twins, and then we can talk about all these aspects at a later day, at a later time. But here, more important is that the ingredients are have to be sustainable at the first go, right? And if that happens, like let's say what you're taking an example of, I'll take a small example of, if you are making anything, you can say, or utilizing once the product is ready, right? Even during the process of implementing that project or a product on the ground, right? Then at that moment also you can make this thing, you can say, end of life product, right? And make it sustainable, right? I was working in a smart meters industry last year, and then we were trying to get into the reverse logistics vendors, right? Where we had helped not only to probably implement manufacture smart meters, that is what you also had mentioned, that okay, how it should be done from probably starting off from the plastics, then the electronics and everything, and then making it together. But once we implement this thing on the consumer end or at the feeder end, in the utilities, we'll get a lot of old material, old meters, right, which is digital meters or the electronic meters, that need to be disposed, right? Once that is to be disposed, this is something which need to be think of, that how we need to dispose, right? That is how, if you put across the things that okay, now you have a lot of material which is lying there as a waste, right? And you don't have any kind of a strategy, then you're doomed for a failure. So I'm taking an example of, because we had seen that kind of a thing, that the utilities don't have any way, even they don't have a place to store that particular waste, right? On, and then even on the utilities where their offices, we've been dumping it out, and then we have not been able to implement new meters because there's it's becoming a filthy, or you can say a filthy dumping ground for that old meters. So by design, it has to be planned out. It has to be in a way that you can process that particular waste, right? Or you can say the material, and then reuse that thing for a, you can say, in a sustainable way.
Thanks, Amit. Yes, uh, it, it also reminds me of your vivid description of the meters which have been replaced lying there. Yes, it kind of brings a picture that I also remember from my memory. But yeah, it is incredibly important that we look at it in holistic sense rather than looking at only the product or only its usage, or only its first life, so to speak. So thanks for that insight. Ajinkya, I will come to you next. Now that we saw Shahana speak about the design of the product incorporating this, and Amit speaking about bringing that into thought process into the entire supply chain. I would like to understand, are there any regulatory developments? Are there any policies around this? And how they are expected to influence how the companies design their products, as well as manage their supply chain so that they are circular. So probably going into next 5 to 10 years horizon, how do you see this evolving?
Sure. First of all, thanks, Vikrant, for having me here, and glad to hear the other participants till now as well. You mentioned in your, like opening context, like, like we have circular strategies like recycling, reuse, but it's again just not limited to recycling, reuse. I think Shahana also covered that, like design. That is another very important circular strategy that needs to be incorporated. And there have been many regulatory developments, like that are happening here in India as well as at the global front. Before even diving into these regulatory developments, just wanted to highlight that we are moving into an ecosystem where sustainability is being demanded. And when sustainability is being demanded, I think there is also going to be a push for circularity, right? So we are going to see, like how companies are going to design their products, reduce their carbon emissions, where do they source their materials from, and so on. So, and like these policies will definitely, like shape not just as the core sustainability part, but also, like how do we ensure that there are circularity elements also coming into the foray for any sector, not like a particular sector, but any sector for that matter. To start off with, maybe like say from the Indian perspective, I have worked extensively on, like solar waste. And this is a part of, like the electronic waste management rules here in India that was introduced by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change back in 2022. So they mandate that, basically all these management rules. I'll also cover some others, but they're basically, they basically work on the principle of extended producer responsibility, which means that like producers are mandated to collect and recycle whatever they are putting in the market, like their products in the market, and basically collect them and recycle them. So we have like the e-waste rules, which were introduced in 2022, which also include a small section on solar waste, which was the first time solar actually got covered in any of these waste management rules. Um, Actually, and what these rules talk about like solar is that like the producers, which are the manufacturers, resellers, or importers, they're actually mandated to store this solar waste that they would generate from either solar modules or solar cells until the year 2034-35. But similar to the other electronic waste, the EPR targets are actually not currently applicable on solar. They are still, like yet to be applicable on like solar waste. But according to our analysis, like at the Council on Energy, Environment and Water, and we have conducted some analysis where we estimate that by 2030, around 600,000 tons of solar waste would be produced. And by 2047, it would be more than, or yeah, 11 million tons. And we see that if we are able to come up with an recycling infrastructure and like recycle solar waste and recover materials out of it, it would be able to meet 38% of the material demand from the PV industry until 2047. Similarly, we see that it would have a market opportunity of almost INR 3,700 crores in 2047. So, and that's why we are pushing for EPR for solar, like for solar as well, because it will just help recyclers to, generate more revenue as well as get in more recyclers to get into this market. Similarly, and this will basically help, like the generating more circularity or integrating more circularity into the entire solar manufacturing value chain. You recycle materials, then you'll have to put it somewhere. And the best way to put it is maybe not any other industry, but in solar industry itself. So you have like currently India's manufacturing modules at an incredible scale, but we'll also dive into upstream manufacturing, which includes cells, ingots, wafers, as well as other bill of material components such as solar glass, aluminum frames, and so on. So the recycled and recovered materials can actually flow back into the system itself and basically form a closed loop. That's what like the main the agenda of any circular economy is. Similar to electronic waste management rules, we have battery waste management rules. They have also taken a step further. What they have done is they have also introduced a mandate where from FY27 they actually will have a minimum recycled content in any new product, any new battery that is going to be manufactured, starting from 5%. Of course, like the percentages will increase year on year thereafter. Similarly, for plastic waste management rules, again, there is a recycled content to be, basically there's a minimum recycled content that needs to be utilized for, like manufacturing new products. Similarly, we're going to have EPR for non-ferrous metals, aluminum, zinc, copper from next year onwards, and they also would have like a minimum recycled content, usage of minimum recycled content from, I think financial year 28-29. So, and similar for ELVs, I think Shahna already covered, like the SEBI's BRSR, Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting Mechanism. But we have like these mandates which are basically going to push, like circularity and, like sustainability into the ecosystem. And not just Indian regulatory developments. We have CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism coming up by, like EU. We have the EU Circular Economy Package. All of these things are actually just going to kind of push, like businesses to ensure that they are tracking their carbon emission. They are tracking how much recycled content is being used in their products. How are they designing their products? Where are they sourcing their materials from? So I think all these regulations and developments are actually just going to kind of help making ecosystems across regions, across global regions more circular, maybe by deploying, like traceability mechanisms, ensuring more tracking, like having digital product passports, as you just said, Also recycling infrastructure, like scalable recycling infrastructure, which could be replicated, as well as, uh, I think one of the main things that uh, at least I took out from your context was like we are missing that design for circular element right now in like a lot of value chains, industry value chains, and that is also something that we might see coming up in the future, and that's how we'll be able to tackle this linear economy approach and like move like properly transition to a circular economy. Yeah, thank you.
Great, great. Thanks, Ajinkya. Yeah, oftentimes when we think of recycling and recovering the material, we often think of rare earths. We often think of materials which are difficult to extract. But nonetheless, whether it is easy or difficult, extracting the material is using a non-renewable resource. Plus, it also consumes that much energy, and the scrappage of that again is going to consume energy. So a really important thing to understand that it doesn't just apply to certain materials which maybe make a business case for recycling or recovering, but also look at everything. Particularly silicon apparently is very abundant, but then it does require a lot of energy to extract. So thanks for that. And as you mentioned, in terms of how important it is for traceability, because oftentimes the policies would be framed, like you said, how much percent of recycled content of a particular element or a metal, or the material that goes into the products, and maintaining that is going to be very important as well, and the traceability, the credibility of maintaining that information. So I would like to bring Rajiv in at this point to understand how the digital traceability is enabling this evolving these practices, and also helping us keep a good account of, or a credible, tight account of things, to ensure that the circularity is maintained and built into systems adequately. Would like to hear from you, Rajiv.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vikrant. Glad to be here, and it's good to listen all the panelists and fruitful discussion. So yeah, so I represent a company which is Report.ai. We're a startup where we are trying to get how these things will be done. We have a lot of policies in place. We have a lot of theories has been developed around the circularity, but execution part is kind of it is in a starting phase. So and we do believe manually a lot of works are going on, but the amount of data we have to handle, or amount of depth we have to go, that is manually kind of it is not possible. So there comes the technology part of it, and how good part of AI solving some biggest problem. So, given the digital traceability, we are doing one of the project for one of the biggest apparel companies in India. So, in present situation, it is like as a brand, the visibility is up to tier one. Who are my first level of suppliers? But if we have to design, we have discussed the design concept. We have discussed the granular level of going to the process and the raw material level. So going to those level, you need to have a digital path, or you need to have very data is available with in various format, but how you are giving a meaning to those data. So, if I have to talk about the tier four, like how, raw materials is getting, covered, or how you are under what environmental conditions those materials are, being manufactured. So all this data, to be compiled and make how it is coming from one tier to another tier, and have a, the concept of chain of custody, we tell how the transactions are happening, how we are going to the minute details of the parameters and emissions level. So we talk about LCA. We talk about CBAM. So CBAM refer to the specific embedded emission into the product. Now we have to break the product, and we have to reach out to that level where actually I can get a value to defend my emission calculations. So digital traceability will design a digital twin of the entire your system, and then we'll go to the granular details to collect the data. So data collection also we have seen problem. Data will be there, but just say some data will be in PDF, or some data will be even in the photo. Some data will be in some small kind of piece of paper, handwritten. So all these things, all this data can be dumped into the platform like us, and we give a meaning to the data, and with those data we can calculate the emissions, and we can design the targets, and we can also employ the format, like not exactly format, like what the policy is saying. There are some target, design some target, so those can be done very automatically, and to eliminate the manual part of it. I think one more important point I would like to tell, there is a sense, like I could find in normal discussion with the client, we talk a lot about the environmental aspect, but there is a equally social aspect around it. The minimum wages are being maintained, or how the safety and health is maintained in a factory. So those data is, again, it is there, it may be somewhere in some registry, but is it as per the standard? Are those data being monitored? Are those, we are meeting the S aspect of ESG? So those are also critical in our view, and we are trying to bring those traceability also into the system, so that it becomes full-fledged, we can make it in a full-fledged way. Yeah.
Great, great. Thanks, Rajiv. Another very important aspect which we often miss is sustainability is not just about materials, but also businesses, also processes, and also overall social
Correct.
impact of, right. So really good insight on that. Thanks for that. I'll circle back to Shahana. Now that we have gone through one round of discussion in terms of probably covering most of, if not all, the value chain of a product, and also how these the digital tools are helping us have this traceability. Is it possible to anticipate uh, these kind of performance in terms of circularity of a product, and have that feedback into the design? We often in engineering we often depend on validation, right? But here you can't actually do a validation. So how do we simulate, if I may use that word, in terms of the later performance of the product, and feed that back into design? So any thoughts on that?
See, LCA, another important thing in terms of LCA also, Vikrant, which we generally ask, and we have seen, by way of our experience, it's not just at one stage. It has to be, conceptualized at most of the day stages. Design is one wherein because we understand that for a product to be successful, when I say a circular product, or say any product, I mean, 80% of the emissions, as I mentioned, is already logged there in the design stage itself. Now, if there are any incorrections, or if there are anything which hasn't been channelized, I mean, suppliers haven't been involved at that particular stage of the designing, it leads to certain errors. So therefore, in order to course correct, we also see that once, after at each and every stage, you repeat the process, and then you see that the previous data that was available with you, does it corroborate with the one which is coming after the design and implementation phase? In fact, one of the most important factors to ponder upon or to note here is, we saw all the panelists, by the way, everybody talking. One is emphasizing on the supply chain part of it. Another, Rajiv just emphasized on the S part of it. What is most important when it comes to LCA is also collaboration, at the design stage itself, across various departments. The flip side of it, if we do not, there have been such cases, for example, one of the major places wherein there was a failure, there was a design shift was being done in the automotive industry, a key design shift And then one of the key elements, which was an infrared sensor, which was required in that element, was no more available, or a reliable product was not available in the market itself. And the reason being that supply chain team was not involved, in that core decision making. In order to make all of that a success, for example, I was recently doing a science-based target, inventorization for an organization. If you look at the building sector, embedded emissions is one criteria which has been specifically called out. They don't call it out as no more as a scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. I mean, it's there from a broader perspective, but then they call that as embedded emissions have been called out as a very separate, data point in the science-based target. Reason being that there's a huge emphasis of embedded emissions, in the factor. And in order to make that a success, it is important to bring all teams together, the design team, and give them separate KPIs. For example, the design team can look into the product performance and the aesthetics. The other team, the sustainability team, may look into the reduction of the emissions. Supply chain team may look into the cost part and the performance part, and they work together in collaboration. That leads to success. So, yeah, that's my point.
Great, great. Yeah. It is more of integrating the entire process rather than only looking at design or only looking at incorporating into you could essentially have a material in the design, but unless the supply chain is established to supply it sustainably, it still won't be a sustainable material in effect. Uh, uh, thanks for that, Shahana. Amit, I would like to come back to you in terms of we talk about circularity. What is there a possibility that the products are bought back or brought back by the company which manufactures them after the first use or second use? Is it something that is profitable? There is, I think, a liability in consumer electronics that if at all the company which produces, the corporate which produces the product has to take back if that is being asked for, but there is no mandate as such, right? And I think it will be there in a sense if it is profitable, if it is a successful business model. So what are your thoughts? Is it possible for the producers of a product to actually also take back, refurbish, reuse, and appropriately recycle the product?
Sure. So this is an interesting question, Vikrant, and then I just want to spend some time on the statistics, right? That's important because we should lay down the right aspects. So if we see that what we are generating, I'm saying generating the waste, right, is around 2.2 billion tons of waste across the globe. That's in 2020. This will increase by 73% by 2050. So somewhere around 4 billion tons of solid waste we will be generating. And how much is this recycled? It's hardly 20%. So that's where it is. If we are just been able to do this recycling for only 20%, where it is going, right? And as per one of the studies from US, 80%, again I'm saying 80% of the recyclable is going to the landfills. So that's the, in Hindi I can say, the vidamna, that we are not been able to structure this kind of a thing, even if it is an e-waste or a battery recycling, right? And make this probably a mandatory kind of a thing. What you touched upon very rightly on the consumer electronics, on let's say even on the FMCG aspects, the EPRs are coming into the picture. Government is pushing across to have those kind of an extended producers responsibility, where they need to pay in for putting it across of whatever they are selling, right? They have to keep a kitty, right? I remember 22 rupees per kg or something, to for the recycler, right? So once there is an end of life, let's say take an example of air condition, right? You are using 10 to 15 years or whatever the life of air condition. After that, that particular recycler will be getting to take on that air condition from your house and then recycle. So that a mandate is pushing some things on the consumer electronics, which is a little bit of a structured thing, right? And even today, a lot of companies are mushrooming up, right, for this complete the reverse logistics, which I touched upon 15 minutes back. But the thought is where the most of the landfills, what the balance 80% is going, right? Can we make it as a structured thing? Is this, if you, I'm saying Delhi, where I live into, in NCR, there are places which are, let's say, known as Sirampur and all. There's tons and tons or gallons of waste which is being there lying in the landfills, right? How to structure that kind of a thing? Can we use technology? Can we make it probably a better way to, you can say, segregate the waste at the source is something that we need to probably think of. And then if that happens, right, certainly there is a value for that waste. The valorization will pay off in the long run. And whatever we are saying as rarer today, right, I'm sure that uh, if we are able to probably get the value out of that waste, it will be a game changer, especially in case of the e-waste or the battery recycling we are talking about. And the second point, what you mentioned on the end of life, certainly it's a big value chain. And batteries, I'll just touch upon based on my experience in that field, that end of life batteries, especially the EV batteries, right? And something which could be used, or you can say reused as a batteries for the battery storage, and then in the various applications on the grid integration that is being done, right? It's not only the refurbishment, but you are just you can say recalibrating, seeing the state of the health of the battery after they're used for 4 or 5 years in the EV space or the mobility space, and then using this thing for the battery applications in other part of the world. So that is happening. That is something which is probably picking up, and then the AI and other technologies are helping to get a better assessment to the battery manufacturers and the whole ecosystem.
Great, great. Thanks, Amit. Yes, there are so much variations also, right, across sectors. Consumer electronics has gone a certain distance in that sense, but other sectors may not be. And there is also, to certain extent, the GHG part is relatively sorted. May not be completely sorted, but relatively sorted in terms of uh, uh, having those mandates, how much energy we are using, how much green energy we are using, and so on. So I would like to come to Ajinkya with idea that is it possible for what we are seeing as things evolving in the GHG or carbon sector, is it possible to have similar norms or similar policies, similar indicators for circularity, and can they go hand in hand? In the sense, I'll give a simple example. Probably, B has star rating for energy, right? Can there be a star rating for or something equivalent for circularity? Uh, if that helps, yeah.
Sure. No, thanks for the question, Vikrant. Yes, I mean, what I can say is, I, maybe I would like to start with an example itself. So I was at the Bharat Recycling show a couple of weeks back in Mumbai, and there are a lot of plastic waste recyclers, e-waste recyclers, and battery waste recyclers as well over there. And what I got to know from especially the battery and e-waste recyclers, that currently India does not have any, say, standards for the recycled content. Like if I'm, say, extracting or recovering lithium, nickel, cobalt from battery waste, and maybe other materials from, like electronic waste, and maybe then say silicon or copper from solar waste, I don't have like standards. Also maybe across sectors, I don't know if I do have standards, then how are they going to talk to each other? So like the interoperability kind of a thing, and or modular aspect of it. So like if there are no standards or there is no uniformity between such like standards across sectors, then it is very hard for anyone across the sectors to kind of ensure that, okay, I am recovering or I am using a recovered product which has a certain grade. I mean, recyclers can provide materials to me. I'm a manufacturer. Recyclers can just, like provide materials to me. But if I'm unsure of like what the grade of the material is, although there would be some tests run on it, but it still kind of gives, I mean, it doesn't instill confidence, market confidence in terms of the buyers of my product. So that is something that I, definitely or vividly saw during my visit at Bharat Recycling Show. And that's how I think it should be. Like we need to have, say, some standards on, like say the recycled content for different materials. And then it also kind of becomes a plus if we are maybe exporting. I mean, if we don't have off-takers here in India, until the time they do get established here in India, maybe we can still kind of export them, right? And if we already have standards in place, then if I am a recycler and I'm able to recover high quality materials and it is being kind of certified, then off-takers from even like other countries, EU, Australia, US, wherever, they at least know that okay, they are picking up something which is like of high quality. And if they are demanding high quality materials, then as a recycler, I'm also kind of like pushing my company, my people to have or build or develop processes that are able to recover higher quality materials. So in that way, I think standards are pretty important. Another aspect for standards, I mean, this, like the example that I took was more on recycling. Say, maybe an example on reuse. We don't have standards for, say, second life batteries or second life solar, right? I think BIS, being the apex body in India, needs to come up with, like the Bureau of Indian Standards. There are numerous standards that they give out and certification that they give out for new products, be it solar modules, consumer electronics, and so on and so forth. But it is also important that they come up with second life standards for products. So if I'm a refurbisher and if I am basically buying a used solar module from somewhere, I know what tests to run. I know, like what kind of certifications or labeling requirements are there for me to then again sell this into the market. And then because of these ratings or the labelings that you just mentioned, at least the buyer or the end user in the market is very confident. Okay, buying a product which is, like valid, which is, which is certified, and it has some kind of a guarantee warranty. Maybe a second life solar module will have just maybe 5 years or even 2 years, but at least it has that warranty mention. And then, like as a consumer, I'm willing to buy it. Similar to, like what we have seen in the refurbished ELV market, end of life vehicles market. So something similar, I think, needs to also happen for, say, second life batteries and solar. So maybe, yeah, harmonized standards is the need for, like a lot of sectors in India.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned a really good point on reusability. Oftentimes we think of material reusability, but a lot of these products, for example, batteries coming out of electric vehicles, they have a lot of capacity left in them. Around 75-80% of the new capacity is still there, but they are now they have less capacity to serve in the first use. They move into second. So there is a need of, and the second use could not necessarily be in automotive. It could be elsewhere as well. And that's where I would like to come to Rajiv. How do concepts like passports? We talk about battery passports a lot nowadays. How do concepts like passport help this across sectors? Today this battery unit cell could be going into a vehicle, but decommission from the vehicle, take it apart, or maybe even use it as it is, and make a fixed energy storage system for renewable integration, or even go to a further retail level and repackage that as a cell with whatever capacity is left. And how does something like a digital passport help in ensuring that there is a second, third, fourth life?
Yeah, exactly. So, the traceability you talked about. So DPP is nothing but, face of the traceability. So I have established all my supply chain till TR4. Now, all this big data I cannot show in a bigger format to the normal, consumers. If I talk about the, fashion brand, so when I'm buying a shirt or jeans, I cannot come with a lot of data. Okay, see, this has gone into it, this has gone. I cannot explain that. So there comes the solution of DPP. So DPP concept is, it is just a scanner. It is a QR code. So one myth is there. Okay, it is just a QR code. So it is not just a QR code. It tells now, like once you scan those QR code, it tells the entire story. From tier 1 to tier 4, how this material has come to this shop. So this can be applied to any field. If you go to the heavy electronics, or if you go to the food industry, jewelry industry, any industry, you can map those data and bring into the QR code. Now, one more myth will be like, it contains only the, recycle aspects of the product. So that also, it is not the case. It is like, it tells you the entire journey the product has traveled with its raw material and everything. So I personally see, being from the digital and, sustainability field, but I think it is a kind of communication system where I'm creating the awareness in the consumer, because it is not the industry or government is responsible. I think the consumers and the users are equally responsible for circularity. So if for example, if I know in this factory the safety and other conditions are met, or in some factory it was not met, as a consumer I'll feel okay, something I have to do for it. It may be in terms of spending more money, or it may be raising this to some level where it can be action can be taken. So those aspect in a coming in a single QR code, and I'm seeing an entire thing. So it is very critical that the time we are in, contribution from everyone, and I look at it from the consumption angle.
Great. Yes. Yes, very, very important, as even Ajinkya had said, that to establish the confidence that I am getting a certain, kind of, we say, certified for second use
Correct, exactly,
kind of
exactly.
model, but it is more of universal, not just restricted to a sector or even to a geography. Yeah.
Yeah, so it has been mandated in Europe, but I think
Mm.
India, it will come slowly.
So,
That,
sure,
yeah.
sure. I'm just looking at the comments and the Q&A. There is one question, kind of a little follow-up, Ajinkya, on what we discussed a couple of minutes back. And anyone else is also open to comment on it. But any standards as per Indian government on e-waste recycle and reuse that is in the pipeline or already there and it's evolving?
So from my side, I mean, we just have the e-waste management rules by MOFCC currently, so all these waste management rules are issued and released by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. And we have it for, I guess, many sectors, and definitely for the e-waste as well, which were introduced in 2022. Standards per se, as I said, so we still lack kind of some standards. I mean, we don't have standards for reuse, we don't have standards for like a recycled content, but what these regulations actually impose, as I mentioned in my, I think, response to your first question, that there are certain regulations which have already started accounting or started imposing producers to use a minimum recycled content in their future products. So I think similarly for e-waste as well, because I think we have around 106 categories of electronic and electrical components. So for all these 106 categories, I think it will take some time to like ensure that how much amount of recycled content should be there for like each of these products going forward. But in time, I think this is going to be applicable across like any sector.
Sure. Thanks, Ajinkya. I think we are just going over time, but a couple of questions, if all the panelists are okay. I think one of the questions on comment is also covered here. Which industry sectors do you see focus on circularity? There was another question which asked about whether IT sector has a relevance to circularity. So maybe I'll throw it open to the panelists, whoever wants to take that.
See, I would be taking up that question. See, from a It's generally when you talk about circularity, most of it would be relevant for the manufacturing industry because we are talking about product design. But however, it's not that it's irrelevant from a services perspective. Today in the generation of AI, all IT services industry, I mean, some of them, I also see them, uh, uh, thinking about circularity from an AI perspective. That how does we are talking about digital traceability. AI plays a huge role. Some of it, I would not say all of it, but then, however, even the for a service industry also, the purchase goods and services, the category one of the of the scope three emissions that you calculate, even you'll need to think through who is your key supplier and from whom are you may not be doing or embedding a circularity in your design, but the products that you're purchasing as a part of your which forms a part of your service also has to have embedded the concept of circularity for a your purchase goods and services emission is one of the highest for IT services industry. Scope 3 is the highest, and that too, the category 1 is the highest. You will have to look into and find a supplier. For example, organizations like Dell and all, they're doing massively, they're performing massively when it comes to recyclability, when it comes to circularity. All of them are, that that's a buzz in the industry, in the electronics industry, in the IT sector industry. So yeah, if you look forward to, and to look forward to responsible procurement, that also significantly impacts your industry. So yeah, indirectly, yes.
Sure. Amit, you would want to add anything?
Not on this point.
Sure. And then I think there was one more question in terms of while assessing the journey of a product. So you touched upon this, Shana, earlier also, that LCA is not just about the design, although a lot of it focuses on the design at the moment, but there are aspects. So what are the kind of challenges the companies would face in terms of implementing LCA across all the processes? So
The data is one of the primary challenges, Vikrant, that we have observed. Fetching the and getting the correct information. Even if I'm talking about, say your emissions data, your CO2 data, even the component data that we talk about when we do LCA is something which is very important. If you do not have the right set of data, I mean the information or the decision making capability is less. There are a lot of LCA softwares available, but then, however, it differs. Like one eco-invent software would not lead you to it depends what products are we talking about, what components are we talking about. So choosing the right factor is also very super critical. That's one of the major challenges. Another one is, this is something, LCA is something which I see in organizations, and why there's a tipping challenge. It's a top driven approach, it cannot be a bottom driven approach. Now each product that I design has to be conceptualized in a way that I also embed the design thinking process and LCA together, from the design stage. And that's also a top driven approach, wherein organizations and people, because of the lack of awareness, they suffer. But however, we see a lot of regulatory push coming up, especially in the EU region that we talked about, and of course in India as well, which is going to push the subject matter like anything. And people are seeing they're reaping benefits of the investment that has been done in LCS.
great. Thanks, Rana. Yes, lot of things often indirectly also get driven in India through EU regulations, because we are supplying a lot of, we are tier 1, tier 2 suppliers to a lot of European companies, and also now becoming even the manufacturing hubs for that. We want to become the manufacturing hubs as well. So I think that eventually will come through Indian government mandate, but kind of also gets driven indirectly. So I think, Isha, we have covered most of the questions from the audience as well, I guess.
There is one question. Which industry sector do you see focus on circularity increasing in coming period, and whether more at product or facility level?
So, if I may take that question, if we see there's much more focus today in terms of LCA, wherein we see a top-driven approach is in the automotive sector, the FMCG sector, the electronic sector, even in fact the manufacturing sector, the metal and manufacturing sector. These are some of the sectors wherein we see that it is a lot of them where we see a top driven approach. There are case studies, you may look at case studies, you may find a lot of them at the Ellen MacArthur, Foundation website. If you want to look at it, if you want to do a deep study, there are a lot of publications, in terms of case studies of how organizations have been doing. And when you say that it has to be done at the more at the product or the facility level, see, it has to be done more at the product level. Of course, if because if the product is, if you're catering to different geographies, of course, and if the components are different, of course, it differs. Then you go at a facility level. But if there's a product, one product which is branded as that particular, product having specific components, it's absolutely fine to do it at a product level.
Yeah, just adding on to what Shahana said, apart from like the industry she mentioned, I think the clean energy space as well is something, like the sectors, be it solar, be it wind, batteries, I guess moving forward it will be hydrogen technologies as well. I think all of these sectors, because they're anyways renewable in nature, like the next step in their journey is actually also to become more sustainable. And the way to become more sustainable is actually integrating circularity principles into their entire value chain. And I think so these are also some of the sectors that we are going to see in like embedding more circularity into their products.
Now, Vikrant, I want to add more point what Ajinkya just mentioned. Can I do that for a minute or two, taking two
Sure, sure.
examples?
Yeah, yeah. No, no, sure. Go
Sure,
ahead.
sure, sure. Thank you, thank you. So Ajinkya, you are right, bang on that clean energy space. I've been working on this space for more than 5 years now, and then closely watching what exactly are the developments, right? And a couple of examples. This morning only I got to know. Last week I was in central part of India, and then we are trying to get into putting across the wind turbines or the wind power projects, and we're looking for an investment. This is like the case. We are looking for an investment for putting across the wind mast to see what exactly are the data points, right, of the wind measurements, and then it is being done, right? So there was an investment which we are talking about for putting across a new wind mast, right? And now the issue is that if you can just refurbish, yes, it can be, right? Because the old wind mast you can say remove from the old locations and then refurbish and then can be done. But the answer, people do that? No, people don't want to do that, right? The IPPs are being filled up and that kind of a thing. Fortunately, through our network, we had been able to get a company in Pune who is refurbishing the old mast and providing this thing at one-fourth of the cost, right? Now, this is a classic example, right? The cost has been reduced. We had been able to recycle the material, use this thing, let's say 140-meter mast. We had reduced this thing by 10 meters on both sides, and then 120-meter of mast we will be putting it across at our site location. And this is a classic case, right? It's a win-win, right? So I think it's more of change in the mindset, what even Ajinkya also mentioned, right? And then the second case, which I was discussing with one of my partners on the technology side last evening, right? Where now the technology partners, which are doing the basic engineering, they were saying that, okay, if you where you will be sourcing your carbon, right? Carbon is being used as one of the process elements, or you can say the carbon dioxide to be specific, to put across or synthesize ammonia and the other things on the hydrogen side, what even Ajankya mentioned, right? So they are very keen. If you will be sourcing the feedstock from, let's say, the coal-based sources of carbon dioxide, we are not interested in you, right? If you will be probably using a biogenic form of carbon. Now, biogenic is what exactly it is. It's the feedstock which will be from the sustainable material. It could be a woody biomass. It could be something more towards utilizing you can say sustainable material, and in that way if you're using or you're generating carbon from them, then it is much more beneficial for the overall value chain, right? So they're very keen. If you are using this, then only we will be tying up or probably discussing with you the way forward, otherwise we are not, right? So that's how the industry is being changing, and then this is something which will impact in the near future.
Great, great. Thanks, Amit. Yeah, very important point that kind of sums up that it's a change in mindset that is required. You look for opportunities and you look for that to qualify actually in terms of the product. Great. I think we can conclude the Q&A with this. Over to you, Isha, for the conclusion.
Thank you so much, Vikrant, and thank you all the panelists for such a wonderful session. It was very interactive. We learned a lot. I'm sure our attendees also have learned a lot. Few things which stayed back with me is again circularity is a mindset, like the example which Amit gave. It's the companies who can push their suppliers to follow it in the right way. It's also not only about focusing on renewable or about just waste, but it is more about at a broader level, what are you doing, which would also include the social part of the society part of the ESG. So I think everyone has a strong takeaway. Everyone, please ponder on what we have discussed. Think about how you can adopt circularity at your end, in your work, in your life. I would also like to quickly talk about our PG executive program on net zero strategy and sustainability leadership. We are starting the program from 6th of December. If you're interested, do check the program out, do check the faculty and the topics which are being discussed. And thank you so much, panelists. It was a wonderful discussion. Everyone, thank you so much. Have a good day. Have a good evening.